Okay, so now we're going to be talking again about structure and function, but we're going to be looking at another area of the brain, the midbrain. As a reminder for where this area is, here's the brain picture that we've looked at a number of times throughout this lesson so far. And this green region that's very deep up inside of the brain, that's going to be the midbrain area. And so let's take a minute and look at some of the structures and functions that are important for the midbrain. Okay. I actually want to, so one thing that it does is it's going to detect reflexes to visual and auditory stimuli. So visual is what we see, auditory means what we hear. Okay. Now, something I often do with my students to try and demonstrate the reflex to auditory stimuli. So I kind of pause for a minute, and then I'll take a book and I'll slam it down really hard on the table. And when I do that, everybody jumps, and they turn and they look toward the sound. Well, that's the reflex, this motor movement in response to an auditory stimulus or sound coming in. Okay. A reflex is generally not something that you consciously control. It's going to be something that happens automatic and involuntarily. Okay. The regions that help direct the reflexes, the inferior colliculus is going to be the auditory stimulus, and then the superior colliculus is going to be the visual stimulus, so reflex in response to bright light or something flashing by your vision. I'd like to take a minute now and I should say that there's two bumps on the brain called inferior colliculus. There's two called superior colliculus. Together, 2 + 2 = 4. So together they're called the corpora quadrigemina. Corpora means body, and quad means 4, so it's literally the 4 bodies or the 4 bumps. So I'll take a minute now and show you on the brain model where you can find these to help you visualize it. Okay, so here's your brain again. Here would be the front side of your brain. Here would be the back side. I've removed the cerebellum, which would be located right in this region here. Okay, so if we look on the back side of the brain, okay, and I'm going to turn it around like this, and hopefully get up close where you can see. Okay, you may notice that there are 4 bumps in this area. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and those are going to be the corpora quadrigemina. Okay, and so the ones that are more superior, okay, so closer up to, let me get it in front of the camera here, up to the top, those are the superior colliculi on both the right and left side. And then these here that are more inferior are going to be the inferior colliculi. Just one bump on its own is called a colliculus. Okay, again, we're looking here in green at the midbrain area. On the surface are the 2 superior colliculi, and then underneath that are the inferior colliculi. You'll notice there's this thing called the reticular activating system. It's shown in orange here. If you'll remember, we mentioned it first in the medulla oblongata. So it starts down deep in the medulla oblongata, and then it will move from the medulla oblongata up through the pons, and then the very top tip of it is going to be found in the midbrain area. Now we talk about it with midbrain because it's thought that this region here is actually the part that carries out its function. So a lot of times I'll ask students in my class how they woke up that morning, what woke them up. A lot of times it may be a kid crying, the alarm clock going off, often it's some sort of sound that woke them up. It could be daylight, maybe all of a sudden it got light and so it was visual stimuli that woke them up. I remember at times my cat think she would be being sneaky, and she'd come up right by my face and barely brush her paw against my cheek, so it was some sort of touch that was waking me up. So basically what happens with the reticular activating system is that when stimuli come in, it promotes consciousness. And so activating this system means you become more awake, and then as you don't have stimuli, and if this isn't active, then you may experience sleepiness. The longer that you're awake, the harder it is to stimulate this system. So that's one thing that they found. If this activating system is permanently damaged, then it can result in coma. Okay, so an inability to maintain consciousness. So again, stimuli come in, activate this thing, and it says, hey, wake up. So some other areas of the midbrain that we want to talk about. So we've got the red nucleus and the substantia nigra. Both of these are nuclei regions within the midbrain, and they help adjust motor movements further. You may have heard of the substantia nigra because this is the region that for both Muhammad Ali and for Michael J. Fox it's damaged, and that allows them to not be able to control their motor movements as well as others. Okay. And then lastly, again, we have this region right here, which allows motor commands to move from the cerebrum down to the spinal cord. It also allows sensory information to pass from the spinal cord to the thalamus, which is a region of the diencephalon. We also have nuclei for 2 cranial nerves in this region. So my suggestion, go through these different exercises and use those to help you learn the material for this part of the brain. Another thing that I want to point out to help you as you work through this, superior colliculi, for example, we could say controls reflexive movements in response to visual stimuli. Okay, so visual information coming in. What's the major brain region? How do I know what the major brain region is? Well, you go up here where earlier you answered, here are the major brain regions. And so this is in the midbrain, and so what you're going to go down and put in that box down there would be midbrain. Okay. So I'll let you continue looking through this. We've discussed these, and see if you can figure out the functions, write them in your own words, and also what is that major brain region.